Hey y'all, this is my wife Courtney, the loveliest woman that I've ever known in my entire life.
Hello.
And I am James Roy. This is The Noise Date Night Edition, a podcast where we talk about the movies we've seen on our weekly date nights, and we give you a premium 5-star golden level review.
Yep.
With me as your host and Courtney as your theatrical expert.
That's me.
Cinematic queen, if you will. And self-proclaimed, but I'd back it. You've got my my stamp of approval on it as your totally unbiased husband.
Mm-hmm.
This week we will be covering the movie Dear Evan Hansen. But before we get into that, we'll talk about our lives because we're people and we want you to know how we're doing. Give you a little vibe check, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
Background information.
There we go.
I don't know.
We'll give you the 411 on what's happening in our neck of the woods, as Al Roker would say. So to get into small talk, we'll be covering our week, which is the Texans game that I went to while I was out of town for what Courtney would tell you is forever and a half.
Yes.
And then we'll talk about the wedding we went to when I got back.
Yeah.
But first to cover the Texans game. Fun event. I was in town. I flew out to Houston for my friend's bachelor party. Dylan Kenny, shout out. What's up? One of our most loyal listeners, probably one of our only listeners. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't checked the stat sheet in a while.
Thanks, Dylan.
Solid game. I felt like it ended as expected for most people. A lot of people will tell you the Texans didn't do well. I just think that the play calling was off, but
sorry, babe.
At least we had fun out there. I got to meet a bunch of people that are going to be at the wedding we're going to next week for Dylan, who is getting married to the love of his life. And so I thought it was fun to get a chance to go out and hang out and just, see some live football after this pandemic,
For sure. I'm glad you got to go.
If this was a sports podcast, I'd probably tell you how Davis Mills was underutilized and held back, and less than 5 of his throws were for more than the chains,
Yeah,
but I'll hold back.
I get
from
what you're saying.
I'll hold back from giving you that because until we start a sports podcast, with my resident Dodgers expert here.
Okay.
I'll spare you the details. But later in the week, we went to a wedding.
We did,
which was I thought it was really fun. It was a solid venue. Hadn't been up to the mountains of California yet, so that was my first taste. The views were.
What'd you think?
Crisp. The mountains were about as fun to drive as they are anywhere, and I liked it. I thought it was nice. It was close to Big Bear, right? So I know that
Sky Forest. So
typically at Christmas time we go to Big Bear, right? I hadn't managed to make the trip yet, so guess that was my preview. I'm excited.
It's gonna be fun.
But what did you think of the wedding? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was really, really cute. It was a really pretty venue. It was just kind of like a little mini forest vibe with all the twinkly lights on the trees. And I loved the floral arrangements and the colors that she chose, like that deep burgundy and the blush, kind of like similar to some of the colors that we chose. We had kind of a variety of colors at our wedding. But yeah, overall, I thought it was like a really, really nice wedding, really sweet. Bride looked gorgeous, so loved it.
No, yeah, and that's from our resident wedding planning expert, because we know that the lineage of the Flores family runs deep in the wedding planning. Well, I mean, self-proclaimed. You've got a body of work that proves it.
I've got a few weddings under my belt.
You do. You got it from your mother.
Yep.
No, yeah. I mean, you guys planned our wedding and it went really well, I thought. So solid stuff.
My mother and I, we make a good team.
Yeah, no doubt. Shout out to the Flores family wedding planning committee or company. I don't know.
Whatever we are.
Unofficial side hustle.
Unofficial, official.
But I guess on that note, we can get into the movie now.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, y'all. So this week we reviewed Dear Evan Hansen, and it's a movie about a guy who writes letters to himself as a therapy assignment, and
Mhm.
then one gets taken by a guy who ends up killing himself, and yeah, all that's pretty much well outlined in the plot. He's considered his best friend, or in
Mhm.
the previews. I feel like the preview doesn't really leave much to the imagination, so like I think
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
that plot device is pretty well displayed.
Mhm.
But at surface level, I thought that, I mean, I told Courtney when we were in the theater, I said that I was in cringe mode from about 10 minutes in. I was stressed out, and it's because like the plot, like I said, they laid out exactly what the movie was going to be about, but I just wanted to know how they were going to carry it out, and it was really, I was watching the time tick away, and I was like, there's no time for it to end the way that I think it's going to end.
Yeah.
So that now I'm like venturing into the unknown. And
It is hard because he's like living a lie for so long, and you're like, it's just a matter of time before it comes out, and like, how is that going to happen? So
Yeah.
you're just like,
So I just spent the whole time feeling the pressure of his
Yeah.
lie on me
I
for
know.
like an hour and a half, and I was like
It's a pretty long
cringing all
movie.
the while because a lot of it was very. It was
He just gets deeper into the lie, and it's just like, oh no.
yeah, and so surface level. I mean, I was stressed out the entire time, but I told Courtney I liked it. I thought it was an all right movie.
Yeah, it was a
wasn't-
decent movie.
It wasn't like the
terrible.
most amazing movie I've ever seen, but
It's still better than Cry Macho.
yeah, 100%. There's no amount of nepotism or cringeness or guys playing characters that they're too old to be playing that could take away from the fact that Cry Macho was not good.
Yeah.
Our only zero
I'd
ever.
have to agree on that.
But no, I mean, based on a Broadway play, it's got Ben Platt, Caitlin Dever, and some other like recognizable
Julian
faces.
Moore,
Julian
Amy
Moore,
Adams.
Amy Adams, yeah, some heavy hitters in this one,
Mhm.
and I think it was really well cast. But
Yeah, and they played their roles well.
I don't know, how did you feel about it?
I thought it was a decent movie. I thought everyone who was casted played their roles well. I agree with you on the cringing part. Like, there were times we were just like, oh, he's just getting deeper in, and it's like, is there any redemption for him? I don't know. You start to like lose that sympathy for him, and I'm sure you'll talk about that later on. But overall, it was a pretty decent movie, and I'd go see it if you're in the mood.
If you are, yeah. I mean, I don't think it's released on any streaming services, but I wouldn't say the theater is vital to the experience. I think
did
it's
like
just
the music a lot.
I guess yeah, the theater is good for the music aspect because the soundtrack's really like typical musical kind of stuff because it is a musical. In case you didn't know, they did sing in the preview, I'm pretty sure, but I thought the soundtrack was really good. It was well executed.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely cut for time some of the stuff from the original musical, as we found because we looked up the musical soundtrack after we watched it, and there was some stuff that we didn't recognize.
Mm-hmm.
But the opening number was like good stuff.
Oh yeah, there were a few like good numbers in there. So
Yeah. So to get into the plot, since it was my pick, I will describe the plot to y'all, recount it to the best of my abilities. So like I said, a lot of the plot not really left to the imagination by the previews. So
mm-hmm.
Before I get in too deep, I'll issue a spoiler alert. But I think in this case, if you've already seen the Broadway musical or if you saw the preview,
Yeah.
I'm really just filling in the holes.
Mm-hmm.
And most of it, you pretty much already knew what was going to happen, I feel like.
Yeah, you can kind of guess.
But here's a spoiler alert for you because I'm required to give you one by law. I looked it up. Article 137 of the California Constitution, Section A
Mm-hmm.
minus B squared.
Mm-hmm. You're making up your own now.
Yes.
That's what people seem to be doing these days.
Speaking of lying, let's get into the plot.
Yeah.
So Evan
Let's do
Hansen
it.
is a depressed senior in high school. And they spend the early parts of the movie trying to build sympathy for him, and they need to.
Yeah.
Because as you know, he is a liar, for lack of better words. But
Yeah.
I think they do an all right job. They don't like build it up too much.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a broken arm. He's waking up. He's getting ready to go to school. Looking around, he sings.
First day of school.
Yeah, he sings. Waving through a window is the first track,
Mm-hmm.
which it really slaps. It's good.
I like that song.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It kind of introduces you to the fact he's trying to write his first letter, not going well. He talks to his mom, and then he's out the door. He's at school. All the while, I think for the first 5 to 7 minutes of the movie, they're singing waving through a window
Mm-hmm.
while he's like kind of giving you a rundown of his like start of the day.
Mm-hmm.
His mom is always working, uh, and so he goes to school. She tells him she's not going to be there when he gets back. Blah blah blah. He gets to school, and he's kind of going through the motions. They're building that sympathy for him because he's kind of a reject. No one sees him. If a tree falls in the woods, or if I scream in the woods and no one's there to hear it, would anyone know?
He's reciting the lyrics from the
The
song.
lyrics from the song. And so
yeah, they line up pretty well to like depict his life in that moment.
they really drive you down the road of like this guy
like
has a sad life.
Had like no friends really.
But they also try and make it relatable, which I think most of you can kind of relate to. I think everyone at some point in their life has felt like
Alone.
Mm-hmm. But he goes into a lab. He runs into Connor, which is the kid that ends up killing himself.
Mm-hmm.
And Connor is being made fun of by a kid. Some kids make a joke at him. Evan kind of laughs, but it seems like he wasn't laughing at the joke. He kind of made eye contact with Connor and laughed. Connor yells at him and moves on with his life. So that's their first interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then we meet Zoe, who is Connor's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And she apologizes for Connor. Evan is a sweaty-handed, unable to talk to people kind of guy.
Yeah.
So he kind of like chickens out and runs away.
Mm-hmm.
We go back. He's writing his letter, finishing it out at school,
Mm-hmm.
and printing it to the printer. But he's supposed to write a positive letter, but he ends up kind of getting like, I'm really mad. I'm into Zoe. And he writes the letter, and the letter framed from Evan's perspective sounds creepy and like, I'm all alone and this sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But you find, and that's in the preview they show it, and it's like, oh, this letter is probably pretty vague and generic, but the fact that he's talking about Connor's sister is pretty convenient to the fact that Connor steals the letter.
Yeah.
And has it on his person. Zoom into the next day. They're walking up to school, and he spends the whole night trying to find if Connor's posted on the internet or anything. To no avail.
Want to like be out. In the public.
He's talking to his family friend because it's established a little earlier.
Jared.
In the movie. Jared,
I love Jared. He's an atypical.
They're like, yeah, no, we're not friends. We're friends because our families are friends.
He's the comedic relief.
And he's like, why are you telling me this? It's like, well, you're my family friend. You're the only thing I have that's close to a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets called to the office. He gets told, hey, our son killed himself, and this was what he had on him. It was his suicide note, and it's the letter that he wrote. He's awkward. He can't tell them. So that's when he starts dragging out the lie. I don't feel like I need to be too specific on much that happens between then and there.
I mean,
he
just plays it off like he's his best friend, and I think that's just
he goes to dinner with them,
pretty elaborate,
and tells them what he wants. That's another song that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Was the dinner scene, "Forever Friends" or something like that.
I think it's called like "Forever Now."
Forever Now, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's basically depicting like their friendship.
And early on, you get the feeling that the father and the daughter kind of are like, Connor was a bad dude. Or the daughter's like, Connor's a bad dude. I don't really feel bad. And then the father is kind of holding back emotionally because he's like, we gave him everything, and he kind of,
Yeah, they're both not necessarily processing the grief as like typically as you would think somebody would when their family member dies.
Yeah. And the mother like constantly buys Evan out of points where he like puts himself in a hole. They're like, we searched his phone. He didn't have any texts. Like, how do you even know him? How y'all couldn't have possibly been friends and not interacted. And I told Courtney he could have easily played that off, but he went down the wrong path because he's awkward. It would have been like, well, we weren't friends very long, or I don't know. Tell them something that was closer to the truth, because I guess technically they died. I don't know, but he kind of put himself in a bad spot. And so we drag on through the movie. He's telling them all this stuff about Evan. They want to see emails, so him and his friend fake some emails. All of them are rooted in an encounter that he tells them about at the dinner at an orchard. Essentially, he gives them a small bit to go on, and they tell him everything about Evan that he needs to know to keep the lie up, is what it seems like. Or everything about Connor, my bad. And so we go on through the movie. A foundation is formed, and in Connor's honor, and Evan's supposed to speak at the thing. Yeah. We fast forward to the part where he actually does. He's kind of building a relationship with the family, and he kind of gets pushed into a position where he kind of has to speak. He definitely is really awkward at first, but then while everyone's got their cameras out, he delivers a really powerful speech. It goes viral. And all of a sudden it's like, well, now we need to do a GoFundMe to resurrect the orchard because it was like defunct whenever
Yeah, they want to like rebuild it.
they want to rebuild it.
Mm-hmm.
He's introduced to Alana,
Mm-hmm.
who is a girl who's like, I think in the preview she's like, there's more people like us.
Mm-hmm.
She tells him about the fact that like she has prescriptions and like is clinically depressed, and so they go down that rabbit hole, and he's just digging a hole deeper and deeper,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so uncomfortable throughout the entire movie watching it happen.
You sound uncomfortable
I'm
retelling it.
I am. It's so it was so cringe. People think I mean cringe like the way people talk about it nowadays, where it's like cringe like, oh yeah, cringe like people would think where it was just like undesirable, but like in like a, I don't know, like
I
it was
think
bad.
because-
It wasn't a bad movie. It was just cringe because of what it was about.
Yeah, because like something's about to go down, so it's just a matter of time.
No, yeah. So I was just kind of like, so he does the speech, it goes viral, and then all of a sudden, Connor's sister, it had kind of been hinted at throughout the plot, but all of a sudden she's like, yo, dude, we don't have to talk about Connor every time I'm around. Like, I like you. I think you're a great person. Like, regardless of what you do with Connor's life and his memory, like, I want to date you.
Mm-hmm.
And so they start dating, and he starts slipping. His role in the organization, he misses a few meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question comes up where Alana's kind of like, did you even know him? Because you're like kind of acting like you don't really care about his memory. It's kind of like an afterthought. Like you're out there going to the school dance with Zoe, and you're all about her. And like, do you even care? So he shares the letter with her in confidence, and they're like $25,000 off of the goal. 2 days left to raise for the orchard, and she shares the letter on their Instagram in a desperate attempt to get people to donate money. But what actually happens is, well, they reach their goal, but what happens is that everyone sees the letter, and they're immediately like, oh wow, this dude's family must have been terrible. They're like super rich and they couldn't help him out. Like they must have been falling short. And so what it culminates in is that Evan sees that the letter's out, and he's running to try and find Zoe because he's going to try and patch it up. And she's at the house. He walks in, and the family's having a huge fight. All the good stuff that happened from him lying about this is kind of coming undone. And he just has a moment where he's like, no, I lied. Everything's a lie. I didn't actually know him. Blah, blah, blah. And so then we step through. They're like, you should go. This is really awkward. Please don't be around us. And so he goes, and he goes on his, I guess I'll try and make up through it, through actions tour. So like they're adamant about not telling anyone that he lied because in their eyes they don't want to ruin his life and force him to a point where he would do something like, kill himself. Yeah. So they're like, we're adamant. Drive him to suicide. I think that the exact words that Zoe's character says is that because the encounter happens in school, and she says that her mom didn't want to lose another son to this, which was interesting that was the way it was stated, because it kind of implied that while she was hurt over the whole thing, she still considered Evan a son. It was like a distant son that you don't talk to and that you're mad at because he lied to you, but son. And so he goes on his like apology tour where he digs up a whole bunch of info about Connor. At some point in the movie, they talked about how he said he was a songwriter, and Evan said that he didn't know. And through communicating with people that knew Connor and going through posts that he was tagged in, he finds one of his buddies from rehab who has a video of him playing a song. And that's kind of the last song in the movie. And he sends it out to them. He goes through and he reads all of the books on Connor's list of favorite books from 8th grade. And he just kind of tries to get closer to Connor as like kind of closure for being a terrible person. And through that, so early in the movie, I didn't feel like they built up his sympathy card high enough to account for what he did. And then right there, he kind of like worked his way back to like neutral ground. So the final scene of the movie is like, he talks to Zoe. They meet up at the orchard, which gets built, and they just have a conversation. Now, mind you, so they didn't tell that he was that he lied, but he went on Instagram to his 21,000 followers at the time because of the video that went viral. And he put out that he lied, and so everyone in school is treating him terribly because he lied.
Yeah.
And so then this last scene is fast forwarded like a year later. He's in community college. Zoe's in her senior year of school, and they're kind of like, I really wish we had met now, because I think she still has like kind of feelings for him as like a person. I think she was genuine when she said that she liked him, like regardless of this whole Connor stuff. But like, you don't really come back from that.
No.
And so I was looking for a point in the plot where they were gonna build back that relationship, but all the time ran out, and I was like, there's no way this isn't like redeemable.
I think it wasn't necessarily more or less about their love story. So
I agree. But that's pretty much the plot. I mean, I don't think I covered every scene of the movie.
I feel like you covered every scene of the movie.
Because there was like
I'm just kidding.
There's some, but I mean, I feel like I covered the meat of it.
No, you did. I mean, he has like a meltdown at one point, and it kind of like
it implies that he might act like, because of the guilt from like lying to them, he might actually go and kill himself.
Yeah, because he is suicidal.
But instead, it builds up to the
depressive.
fact that he threw himself off that tree to break his arm, which was broken for most of the movie because he just let go. But it covers it's a pretty strong topic. So on that note, I guess I'll throw in the trigger warning and kind of be like, hey, if that's something you're going through, this may or may not be a great movie for you to see. Maybe reach out to someone and resolve that before putting yourself through 2 hours and 12 minutes of talking about it. Probably a good idea. So, but on that note, I guess, so the plot's covered. And since we just talked about the ending, I read an article right after we watched the movie about how the ending is different from the Broadway musical. And it makes sense if you think about it. The ending in the Broadway musical goes that, so at the point where he tells the family that he lied, they all walk away kind of like, they're like, hey, you're miserable and we don't like you. And then he goes to his mom and gets consoled. And then it flashes forward to a year later. And instead of it being like, hey, I'm sorry I lied, it's, hey, thanks for covering for me so that my life's not miserable. And then Zoe is kind of, played by Caitlin Dever, is kind of like, yeah, but it's probably better for our family. It helped restore my parents' relationship, and there was a lot of people that were helped by that lie, so we're okay with it. And so that was a big difference. I think the reason that part was different was because a lot of the stuff that happened in the movie would have been really hard to convey in a stage show, like the video being found, and just in general, a lot of the buzz around it would have been harder to produce. But I didn't really get to why they made the decision to change the movie from what the Broadway show had, but I thought that was interesting. Which ending do you think would have been better in the show? Like, which one?
In the movie, I definitely felt like the ending they went with definitely fit the movie formula, because it kind of gave us a visual as opposed to just kind of like singing us through a song, as probably the Broadway show may or may not be. I'm not too sure. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
But I think just the visual like montage of him going through his apology tour and getting that video out and just kind of like seeing him put in the work to like, okay, who was this guy? Like, I pretend like I knew him, and now I'm gonna really get to know him for who he was and move on with his life. So I think they ended it pretty well.
I feel like it would have been hard to build that sympathy back, and they probably wouldn't have done it. Which, if they, I don't know. I feel like, in my eyes, the way the movie ends, either way, he doesn't get to stay with her. And I feel like they could have ended it with like a, hey, they kind of implied that she was still into him, and they could have given more of like a, hey, maybe we could stay in touch kind of thing. Like I know you did wrong, but like, I think that what you did helped people, and you had our best. Not, he didn't have their best interest in mind.
I think the whole idea is that like he struggles with like a mental illness to an extent, and I feel like for him it wasn't necessarily like getting the girl that wasn't like what made him a whole person. It was realizing that he wasn't alone and he wasn't the only person that was going through this. And so changing from that like victim mentality of like, I'm the only person that's like this, it was like, wow, there were other people that were hurting, specifically Connor, And I was so caught up in my own thing that I like legitimately ruined another family in their grieving process. And so I think for
Yeah.
him, just getting to know himself and getting to know who Connor was and finding himself in that, essentially, I think that was more of like the underlining theme for him as opposed to like finding love. Because now if he's like healing himself, then he's able to have a healthy relationship,
Yeah.
not based off of false pretenses.
No, I feel that. I just think like a lot of people look for, there's typically in most movies like that, a point where the hero or the, not hero, but like the main antagonist or protagonist realizes what he's done is wrong and like has a moment where it comes to a head and everyone's mad at him and then he has time to like recuperate it. And I feel like that was the way the plot was heading. And then, but you just kind of look back at the movie and you're like, there's no way she could forgive him for that.
Yeah, I think it ended a lot more realistic than like unrealistic.
It wasn't like I was kind of a little bit dishonest
like
with
in
you.
real life. I think that would have happened. I think she wouldn't have taken him back, and she's in high school still, and he's in college. So it's like they have perfect opportunity to just start over in new phases.
No, but I guess I don't know. I
you
feel
love
like
that fairy tale ending, don't you, babe?
It was realistic, but it wasn't fairy tale ending, and I guess that kind of got me.
Yeah, because that's what we're used to.
It put me through the ringer for the whole movie because, like I said, I was high key stressed, like cringing and like really just waiting for a resolution, and the resolution didn't come until the final scene, and it wasn't. I don't know. It kind of removed the stress from me, but I don't know if it was satisfying.
There was no luster in it.
Yeah. So I don't know if I like one version better than the other, but.
Well, you haven't seen the other.
Yeah,
version.
I haven't. Well, I've read about it. I mean, I could probably piece it together.
Things.
But I guess another point to cover is the controversy surrounding Ben Platt's casting. And so, with hindsight being 2020 and having seen the movie, one of the big gripes about Ben Platt's casting was that he was too old, and I believe he's like 28.
Yeah,
he's like
93.
Yeah, so I felt like at times he felt a little out of place. I definitely think a lot of the other high schoolers were closer to the appropriate age.
Yeah, I definitely would agree.
And so
Alana's character, she looked more like in high school.
He fit the bill, but I feel like they probably could have found someone else to play the role that would have made it less of a reach. I don't know. And that's, to me, acting is about acting out of your range or like being something that you're not. So like I feel like growing up we saw a lot of actors that played like high schoolers that were really old. Like
I mean, I look back and I watch like the OC and I'm like, yeah, they definitely don't look like they're in high school.
But in today's age, people want someone who's closer to the real thing to play it because we're
I think the argument is that there's so many younger talent out there, like young talent out there that could have easily played this and like been introduced into this role.
Well, yeah, and he's the only person who carried on from the Broadway musical.
Yeah,
which happened like 6 years ago.
But it was a controversial topic because of
the nepotism.
Wasn't his dad the one who?
His dad was one of the producers.
Yeah,
and so there was a nepotism quip there. But I mean, I don't know. The movie came out lackluster. I think it made like $7.5 billion in its opening weekend.
Yeah, it didn't do so well. Sadly,
it didn't do too well. Shang-Chi's still up top.
I think it did better than Cry Macho.
Probably, I could only imagine. But what about the casting of the rest of the roles? So like, I'm familiar with so Zoe's character, Zoe, who's played by Caitlin Dever. She was on Last Man Standing, which is a show that I really liked, and I felt like she was really good there. So I thought it was nice to see her in another role, see her on the big screen.
Yeah,
getting some success. There was Julian Moore, and I feel like she was good. There wasn't a lot of screen time for the mom. There was a bit, but I mean, it was just kind of like, I work too much, but I still care about you, and I want to give you your best life.
I wasn't that of a big fan of her character, just because she was just kind of like a little bit of a cop out as a parent, but
a little bit, yeah.
But then she like made time to go to dinner. I didn't really get that.
She made time for it, and then they were like, "We want to offer your son a scholarship," and she was like, "Well, I'd be a bad parent if I didn't teach my son to work for what he has," and they like made it a point to like really emphasize the battle between like the rich and the poor there.
Yeah.
But like from the perspective of like, I think she views herself as middle class, so she was like, "Oh, so you don't think we have money?" Or like, and it's like, well, do we? I mean,
yeah.
Because all he told them was that he was probably not going to be able to pay for college, and she thought they drew the conclusion that she wasn't rich. But I mean, I think it's a common problem in America to just not be able to pay for college. I don't think that's a shot at like your wealth, but I don't know. It was interesting. We have Amy Adams, and who played the dad. He's in a lot of cop dramas, but I couldn't quite.
Yeah, I don't really know his name like off the top of my head. Let me look.
No, I couldn't place his name.
He was in Chicago PD. That's how I recognized him. But his name is Danny Pino.
Danny Pino, yeah, he's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they did a good job of playing the parents. Danny Pino is the stepdad, and Amy Adams is the real mom. And
the friend is Nick Dodani.
Nick Dodani, that's the friend that's from Atypical.
He's awesome.
No, yeah, he's a pretty good actor, pretty
Mm-hmm.
solid. But
and then the girl who played Alana, her name is Amandla. Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it said.
Amandla Stenberg.
I think I've seen her around, awesome. But I couldn't tell you where I've seen her.
She was in The Darkest Minds. I didn't see that.
She may have been.
She was in Everything.
Yeah, I think that was the one.
Yeah, I saw that.
But no, the casting was really good. I guess I don't think that Courtney's taking. Are you taking a jab at Julianne Moore's playing of the character, or just the character itself?
I think the character itself. No, she played it well.
She played it well.
No, yeah, she did a good job. I was just saying, like, the role written was a little like, I don't know. I didn't really sympathize with her too much. But then you like get kind of a backstory about her and being a single mom, and then you get it.
Yeah.
So I thought she did a good job with it, though.
Well, and also another side note, I kind of saw like a lot of what I was thinking when I saw Evan Hansen when I wasn't like stressing out too much was like, I was just thinking of Benji from Pitch Perfect. That was the role that he played there. And I mean, he has a lot of the same mannerisms and expressions when it comes to his singing. But once again, I thought the soundtrack was pretty nice. I thought it was good stuff. And I definitely thought the casting was good, but I do agree that there probably could have been a younger pick. I feel like I'm talking about my Dynasty fantasy team where I'm like, yeah, I could pick up like this 10-year receiver, but like there are some receivers that have been in the league for 2 years that have potential. I'm just like weighing value of actors in that way, but I don't know. Yeah,
I know like the general public took a pretty big hit to it because of that, and I don't really see necessarily like the need for it, but I also don't disagree with them. I think it could have been given to somebody and it could have been great. We could have like been introduced to someone brand new, which would have been awesome. So I get what they're saying, but I also don't think it necessarily would have taken away from the movie by having Ben Platt play the character. I think we would have gotten like a similar product, just like the way and the pace of the movie and things like that.
I feel you there. But I guess another thing to cover before we get into ratings is Courtney's part of the show where she talks about how the public viewed the movie. And I don't want to say I was surprised, but I'm looking at these numbers and I was it was about as cringe as the movie was.
Yeah, if we're keeping score on who picks the like worst movies, I think you're winning.
I picked Shang-Chi. That's redeeming.
Okay, but like I could have picked Shang-Chi and it still would have been like the best because it's like a Marvel movie. So like IMDb users rated it a 6.1, which isn't bad. It's like watchable. That's like a little bit higher than Hallmark movies, if you know what I'm saying. But if you like the Metascore, which is like the critics, there's about like 2 of them that really liked it. You know, they gave it in like the 70s, which is like the green color. And then you get a lot in like the 60s, 50s, 40s, like The Guardian, Vanity Fair, Variety, Hollywood Reporter. They were all just like meh about it. So there you go. It's probably not going to be up for an Oscar, maybe for the music.
No love for the Platt clan.
No. And then you've got like IndieWire and Roger Ebert in the playlist that just like really hated it, like scored it really low. So, I mean, again, a lot of people just felt like it was a little messy and they didn't really like the formula of the movie. They didn't really necessarily like, what was the other thing? Yeah, they didn't like that Ben Platt played it because he's so old. They thought it was just manipulating on your emotions. It was overdrawn. And, there's like a few things that people didn't like about it. And I can so see that. But I feel like, I don't know, for me, I thought it was a pretty decent movie. I would see it again if somebody wanted to go see it. And I definitely think if it's like, there's nothing else that's in theater or if you're looking forward to seeing it, just go watch it.
I'm looking at these pictures of the actors on Google and you can like Ben Platt looks young, but he doesn't look like that young. Like you look at all the actors next to him and you're like, He looks closer to Amy Adams' age than he does Caitlin Dever's age.
I mean,
Like, I don't know. And not to say that Amy Adams is old. If anything, I think that's saying that she's young.
okay.
But
she's in mom roles now. She's not like,
yeah, no.
you know.
I think they're coming out with Enchanted too, though. So I mean, there's
They are.
that
I'm
to look
excited
forward
about
to.
that.
But with that, on that note, let's get into rating on a scale of 1 to 7. And as always, as the gentleman that I am, we'll go ladies first. So, Courtney,
I'd say 5.5.
5.5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm into the halves.
Well, I'm gonna go with a 4.5.
Okay.
I feel like most of that score comes from the music being really good, which is what drove it up for me. If it was just Raleigh as a movie, I probably would have gone lower. But
yeah, I think as a musical, I scored it pretty high because there are some musicals that are just a little bit cheesy for my tasting, and I felt like this one was above cheese for me.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's other musicals coming out soon, like West Side Story, so we'll have more chances to talk
like
about.
If we're comparing this
musicals.
to like In the Heights, which was like a more recent musical that just got released as well, I loved the story of In the Heights. Loved it.
The story was great.
The music was awesome, but I felt like the acting was a lot more cheesier than this one.
A little bit. I mean,
this
it was a
more
Lin-Manuel Miranda movie.
What does that mean?
It just means like I don't know. Like I've seen the previews for Encanto, and I'm just kind of like, oh, that seems like something he would do.
Yeah, but he did Moana, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he has good stuff. He did Hamilton, but he's also had he's not like 100% accurate guy. You're not gonna see him go 10 for 10 for 130 yards or something like that. He's like 6 for 10 for 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions.
I was like, are you going through like
I'm going through like
football or
2
or
interceptions?
baseball?
One.
Like he's batting like a 300 or
He's probably batting like a 190, 200.
Oh, like that low.
Well, he's like solid, but he's better in his field play than he is at batting.
So like Broadway, you're
They-
saying is more of his.
They keep him on the
hole.
roster for his field play, but like he can hit sometimes.
All that to say was I thought it was a better movie overall than In the Heights, but I do love In the Heights storyline.
I guess for me, I like the In the Heights better, but that's because I wasn't as stressed out watching it.
Yeah, it is more of a feel good, but I think like tackling a topic like this is hard to do, and I thought they did a pretty good job.
Oh yeah, I feel that. But I guess on that note, we can get into talking about what we're gonna watch next week.
All right.
All right. So next week we'll be watching Venom: Let There Be Carnage, a sequel to the original Venom movie that was released with Tom Hardy. Woody Harrelson's gonna be in it. I'm excited about it. I haven't seen the first Venom, so that's my homework for this week is to watch it. And I believe, do you need to see it as well?
Yes.
So we'll both be doing our homework there.
Probably separately, so we can have an unbiased opinion when we talk about this next week.
Yeah, probably. But I don't know. My impression of the first Venom movie from pictures was that Tom Hardy was always sweating and looked like he was miserable the entire time. So maybe we'll get more of that. Who knows? I don't really know much about the symbiotes in the Spider-Man universe except for that Venom's so popular that sometimes they make him a hero, and what's it called? Carnage is I think always a bad guy. But I mean, Spider-Man's my favorite hero, but that doesn't mean that I know all about I know who most of his villains are. I'm hopeful that this is gonna have like some sort of end credit scene that ties him to the Marvel universe, since Sony has given like some of those rights over to Marvel temporarily. But I don't know. What are you thinking about this next movie? Like,
I think it's a superhero movie. I think it's Tom Hardy, and it's in the Marvel verse. So yay!
Is there anything that the
3 of my favorite things?
Has anyone watched it yet? Like, and put anything out on?
Yeah, I mean, some people have like been rating it. The first one didn't get very good ratings.
Okay.
Which is probably why I personally didn't see it. It was like, eh. I do like Tom Hardy though. For the record, people have said that James looks like Tom Hardy.
It has been
Resembles.
said
Okay.
by some people that aren't
I
my
won't
mother.
say what actor people have said I've resembled. Julia Stiles and Heath Ledger. Of course, I'd get a dude in there. Anyways, users have been saying that it is good, that it's way better than the first one. So I don't know who they paid to put these reviews up, but people are giving it like 10s and 9s. They're just like, whoa, it's way better.
We've seen pretty good
I
reviews
mean,
before movies
honestly,
before though.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, these
That
could
turned out to be bombs.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be one of those things where the graphics are going to be great, the action's going to be great. The story might be a little flat because it's Marvel and cheesy, but overall, it's like if you're a fan of that vibe and that world, you're probably going to like it.
Well, I guess my
Right?
question for you is that like, well, yeah, of course, but
Yeah,
my question
because
for
there's
you
always
is,
like an element of cheesiness to these storylines.
well, my question for you is that we've been calling out, trying to pin the blame on who picked the movie for these past few. Did we come to this one unanimously? Is this
For Venom,
for Venom? This is
I definitely wanted to see it, so I'll take the blame if it's bad.
okay. So we're gonna pin
Okay.
this one on you because like
Sure, that's
it's not
fine.
like I don't want to see it. I feel like it's the same thing with Shang-Chi where like I said I wanted to see it,
I
but
also said I wanted to
you
see
also
it.
wanted to see it. So I don't feel like there's. I'll take credit for Shang-Chi.
I think so
but,
far
like,
you have credit for Reminiscence, Free Guy,
Free Guy
and Dear Evan Hansen,
and Shang-Chi.
and Shang-Chi, I guess. And then I have Respect and Protege, and technically Cry Macho. But I didn't really want to. Oh, and Cop Shop. I didn't really want to see Cry Macho. I
No,
said
Cry
Cop
Macho
Shop.
doesn't count against your record.
You said Cry Macho.
We're on our 8th movie, so
That brings you all the way down, though. I love you. But since we didn't review it, I guess we don't have to count it.
yeah.
Because I said Cop Shop first.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, no, I wasn't gonna count it against you, so I'm glad that you won't count it against me.
I said Cop Shop.
No, yeah. I was talking about Cry
We need to
Macho.
do the buzzer. All right. I
Yeah,
think
you'd
they've
be
been
like-
listening for. Oh my gosh. I think they've been listening for a long time.
All right, so I have been James Roy. This has been Courtney. This has been
I
The
am
Noise
Courtney.
Date Night. And like, comment, subscribe. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram.
Mhm.
We're on TikTok. In case you didn't know, because we're cool, hip, and with it. But until next time, let us know what you think, and please watch movies so that you can listen to our podcast.
Yeah,
and
give us suggestions if you see a
interact
movie
with
coming
us.
out. Let us know and we'll go watch it for you and let you know how we feel about it.
Write us some fan mail. I don't know.
I don't know about that. Fan comments.
All right, till next time.
All
It's
right.
been real. It's been fun. We've had fun.
It hasn't been real fun. Just kidding.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.